So, hey everyone, I'm Mackayla, and today we welcome Scotia Rose to the Soundtrack of Our Lives podcast. So, welcome.
Thanks, Mackayla. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you here. Yeah, so you guys just put out your singles, Run and Queens and Kings. So, what was that release process like?
It took a while, actually. We started recording it about maybe 2 years ago, and just different, personnel changes happened. There's been four of us that have been, core members from day one, and we're all on these recordings. And, there were just some changes and some tweaks, and just overall feeling ready to, release stuff and have it out there and be a band that's actually out there. Took a little bit of time playing some shows, tightening some things up. And yeah, now, Phil Duke, a good friend, helped to produce us. And here we are. We put them out. We were working with some really amazing people, did the music videos for us. Can't say enough good things about Hugo Salazar. I can't say enough good things about Kevin Banker. They really, I watched both of the videos a bunch of times over the last week since they've been out, and they look really. I'm very proud of them.
Good. You should be. I think they're amazing.
Thank you.
Do you have some favorite memories of making the music videos?
Favorite memories of me. I mean, that Queens and Kings video was filmed at the cutting room during one of our shows, and it was my birthday that night, and we were opening for Vincent Pastore's band, and he played Big Pussy on Sopranos, and that's been, my favorite show for a long, long, long time. And that was just a really, really cool night. We didn't know what the crowd would look like, but it was, full house, and they were really, really good to us. And we were good to them. And, we sold a lot of merch and a lot of, people wanting to take pictures and things like that. And it was a really, really good time. And that whole night just felt really, really good.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you guys had a release event. What was that like?
Yeah, so we just had a little release party on Friday night at Brooklyn Bowl, and that was crazy. When we got the advance for the show, they just casually dropped in there the amount of tickets that were sold, and it was just like, wow. And they made sure to tell us like, hey, most of these were sold after we announced you guys' support. We were opening for a Chili Peppers tribute band, the Red Knot Chili Peppers. They were so good, and there were so many people, and it was just it was a great time. It was a great time, and people are showing a lot of love to the videos and to the songs on streaming, and it feels really nice. And we have a show in September at the Cutting Room. We're going to be headlining. That's our first headline gig in Manhattan, and feel really good right now.
That's awesome. I'm super excited for you guys to have your first headlining gig.
Thank you.
What's the process been like getting ready for that?
So that's going to be a charity gig for EB research. It's a rare skin disease, and the timing is very interesting. It's the day after the Pearl Jam shows at Madison Square Garden, and this is actually a charity that Jill and Eddie Vedder sit on the board of. So we're just trying to make it a cool night for all the Pearl Jam fans that are going to be in town.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big. I still am a big Pearl Jam fan, but I used to follow them on tour, and I know what that scene is like, and I know those people. I know a lot of those people that are going to be in town, and we just want to do something really cool for them, raise money for a good cause, and just try and we're getting our songs ready. We feel good about our original material. We feel really good about where it is and where it's going. Just trying to pick the right covers and
Mm-hmm.
look for the right special guests, and we can't really talk too much about that, but
Yeah,
it's going to be a great night.
it'll be really fun.
Yeah.
Now that you guys have your first headline gig, are you kind of planning more in the future, or are you kind of just seeing what happens first?
In a lot of ways it's much easier to be the opening band, and
Mm-hmm.
right now we're looking to get out of town a little bit more. We've been a little bit into Connecticut, a little bit into New Jersey, but we want to get out a little bit more, start doing a little bit more touring. And we're starting that process a little bit. Some people are starting to talk to us. It's always a lot easier once you have music released. So
Of course.
starting to get those kind of calls and those kind of emails. So we're putting that kind of stuff together. And if somebody wants us to headline their venue, we're happy to do it. We can play a 3 hour set. All of us play in cover bands together. And if anybody out there's listening and they need a band to play at their bar, their brewery, their restaurant, we're happy to do that too. We're all we like to think of ourselves as working class musicians.
So how does playing in cover bands influence the music that you're making?
Ooh, that is a great question. That is a great question. The last band that I was in, it was a little more of this like proggy, punky kind of rock where it was, thing you had to like really kind of pay attention and there was some like math. And, the pandemic kind of, ended that. And in my desperation during the pandemic, it's like, what can I do, to play? And the only kind of places where you could get a gig or a bar or something like that.
Hmm.
Or so, learning a lot of these, 3, 4 chord pop songs to fill out, a 3, 4 hour set. And, just little different things, little different chord structures, things that are, pretty easy. And you're like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do a little bit of that. And definitely the musical arrangements have been influenced by a lot, Taylor Swift, Steve Miller Band, Tom Petty, Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen. We play a lot of Taylor Swift songs in our band. And she also just, even like content lyric wise, it's like, oh, I can write a song about, what a piece of garbage I am, or what a piece of garbage I feel like in this moment, and like that's okay.
Hmm.
And we can give it this big giant hook, and that's okay. Like it's been fun, kind of, exploring my way into like writing a song that you think sounds like one of these pop songs that you've been playing that people are
Hmm.
singing along to with every night.
Yeah. There's definitely something to be said for kind of having so many different influences impact what you're writing.
Sure, sure, but like so much of it, like I from the beginning playing covers, I was telling people that Taylor Swift reminds me of the Ramones.
Hmm.
People kind of look at you crazy, but I'm like, no, this is just a little bit overproduced and this is just a little bit underproduced. But like if you look at, the content, it all comes back to that like, Phil Spector kind of school of songwriting.
Hmm. I agree. I think Taylor Swift is at the moment, she hasn't always been Taylor Swift. You know what I'm saying? Like as big as she is, and people kind of view it, her pop music, it's like different from everything else, and they don't realize that it isn't that different.
No, not at all. People always want something simple that they can sing along to, and people always loved somebody that was willing to be vulnerable with,
Yeah.
whether that's on stage or whether that's in the studio. That's something that, audiences have always appreciated and have always, I think, have, clung to.
So have you kind of incorporated some of that vulnerability into your music?
Yeah, in my last bands, like the goal lyrically was to be as vague as possible, and I still feel like you should let, the audience decipher their own meaning from the song, but
Hmm.
like they're going to do that anyway. You can
Right.
be as direct as you want, and you can tell people it's about this, and the other thing, and they're still going to hear something the way that they hear it, and relate to it the way that they relate to it. I still don't like necessarily saying, oh, this song is about this or this song is about that. But like if you listen to some of, the Scotia Rose lyrics, they're not that, I like to play around with words. I like to make things pop and make things bounce and like to make things look cute, or sound cute. But you can listen to the words and kind of be like, oh, okay, this is, straight a pretty straightforward
Hmm.
idea thematically.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because as you were saying, some people are very direct about like, oh, this song is about this. And then fans, like you have your own life experiences, so everyone kind of takes it differently, which is always really interesting to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And you love hearing that stuff from people. Oh, even from people in the band, if you bring them like an older song, hey, do you guys want to play this? Oh, I thought it was so, like meanwhile, the people in the band that you were playing it with were like, I don't ever want to play this again. And now people now are like, oh, this means so, it feels so cool. It feels so, big, epic. I can't wait to put my spin on it. So everybody's coming from their own place of their experiences. My favorite thing about music is connecting with people on those different levels.
Mhm. Do you have any like specific moments or memories that you can talk about in terms of like connecting with people through music?
I mean, with the band, it happens every night. I remember, the first time I played a covers gig with our guitar player Marcella. Never met her before. We were just talking for a little bit, like, "Hey, you're gonna do a gig? Are we gonna do a gig? Are we gonna do a gig?" And I remember, just listening to her play. I was like, "Oh my God, she sounds like Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. This like fits in so perfectly to like the vision of like what I want out of my band." And
Hmm.
then I know what her influences are. I know what she listens to. So I didn't want to say you sound like Mike McCready from Pearl Jam because Mike McCready from Pearl Jam is trying to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I'm like, you're sounding like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And then as soon as I said that, it was like boom, like instant connection. And then like
Hmm.
the band continued to flourish.
Yeah. I always think it's interesting. because everybody hears something different in music. As you were saying, like you hear that she sounded like somebody and she might not even feel that way or not even be trying to emulate that person, which is always interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been told some interesting things over the years. I haven't heard anything recently from anybody like, oh, you sound like so and so, which I think it's pretty much that sounds like a good thing. I feel like because that means I'm sounding like myself now.
Yeah,
But I used to hear like you sound like Frank Black, you sound like Jello Biafra. Definitely
interesting.
when I first started singing, people were like, you sound like Eddie Vedder, but that took a lot of work to kind of like because I was leaning on all of those things, in my early 20s when I first got on stage, because that's all I knew. I listened
Hmm.
to so much Pearl Jam.
So how did you kind of find, yourself amongst all of your influences?
Ooh, that is also a great question. Well, you have to think of like the things that you have to let go that are too on the nose, right? And then the little things that you want to borrow, the little inflections, and watching videos of your favorite singers, how they move, the choices that they make, the little inflections that they throw in. There's a lot, there's a lot of like cat power in the way that I do things, but like no one's ever said that to me. But like, there's a lot of, little things that you pick up from people, whether it's in their performance or the things they do vocally. There's a lot of, I feel like, hip hop influence in the way that I choose to do things, especially, lyrically.
Hmm. So what would you say to somebody who's kind of struggling to find themselves?
Throw everything against the wall all day, every day, and see what feels right. You sometimes, you have to, gimmick, 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 gimmick before you can figure out, who you are.
Right.
That's the process for some people.
Makes sense. Probably easier said than done, though.
It's only easier said because I feel like I went through it. Like a lot of people I work with now went to school for music, so that
Hmm.
I did not. I came from a place where finding myself happened, on like a performance level. It happened on stage, or it did happen. I did, take a lot of, voice lessons. I did spend times and a lot of time with a coach. But that's not where I came from. So like finding myself as a performer kind of happened a little. Well, finding yourself. This is like a lifelong process, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't stop. People say your formative years, right? Like your formative years are you're always in your formative years.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a really interesting process, and I feel like it's different for everybody. So I don't want to like give advice based on how it went for me, but yeah, it a time if you stick with anything long enough and really give yourself to it, you're gonna reap rewards from that.
Hmm. For sure, definitely. I feel like people get into something and they're like, I don't know if this is for me. And then they do it long enough and they're like, oh, this actually is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for some people, it takes time. For some people, God bless them, they're born delusional, which is a great thing to, in a lot of ways, it's a great thing to be born as.
Yeah. It's an interesting comment. I like it. Yeah, so when you guys are sitting down either by yourself or with the band to write music, what does that process look like?
So, generally with this group now, it'll be, I'll have, like, kind of a skeleton. I'll have some lyrics, a hook and a verse, and, the music for probably a verse chorus, sometimes a bridge, sometimes not. And we'll bring it to the band. We'll workshop. I'll play it the way that, I've been playing it, in my living room or whatever. And then we'll workshop it a little bit. Oh, I think this should be a little more this way. I think there should be, and people will start using language that I maybe not necessarily so familiar with. And I trust everybody. Like this is not like there's no agendas. The only agenda everybody has is to make everything sound as good as it can possibly sound. It's not like, oh, I want things to be this genre, I want things to be that genre. Like, oh, you can't write a song like this, or you can't. None of that. It's just there's this group effort of just making something as good as it can, getting everybody on the same page, playing, with each other. And that's been the process so far. And then, thing will come together a little bit more. I'll tweak the lyrics based on XYZ. But, I'm always kind of like, giving everybody like little pokes, like, hey, you wanna bring me a riff? You wanna, and we're slowly gonna start getting into that. But it takes time I think, for everybody to get comfortable, especially with a new band.
Makes sense. Takes time to kind of find how you all mesh together.
For sure. And we're definitely finding that. We're definitely feeling that. We play so many cover shows together that we know each other as players. We
Hmm.
know each other's tendencies, which is a great thing. I feel a lot more trust from my bandmates than I ever have in any other situation that I've been in musically. So that's nice. But I want them to know, and they do know that I trust them too. But I want some of their ideas too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you were saying, that takes time and obviously the trust, because if you don't trust somebody, why would you bring forward your ideas? So
Absolutely.
it's good that you guys all trust each other. So if you're ever in like a creative rut, what do you do to get out of that?
Either keep writing or stop writing, one or the
Okay.
other. Either do it, like overdo it, or just take a break for like a week, 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Learn somebody else's song. Learn a song that you didn't think. Learn a few songs that you didn't think you'd ever play, or something like that.
Right.
Listen to some music that maybe you missed along the way growing up, or something that you weren't gonna necessarily listen to, and just try to, like, leave that heart chakra open, but like open it up to different things
Hmm.
and change the routine up a little bit.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because if you don't change up the routine, then it's kind of boring.
Yeah,
Then you don't get all of that other creative, like the music that you missed growing up.
sure. Something might, hit you from out of left field, and you're just like, whoa, and boom, then you have an idea.
Hmm. Are there any like non-musical influences that kind of inspire you?
I mean, there's so much. Like as far as lyrical content, you find it anywhere, from a TV
Hmm.
show, from ancient. I was a history major. I love that stuff. Is so fascinating to me. Anytime I get a chance to write a song with some of that stuff involved is a lot of fun for me. But I know, and there's a line. You don't want to make things too boring. You don't want people to feel like, they're in school when they're at your show. So you got to be tasteful.
Yeah. I also love history so much. I thought about majoring in it, but I didn't end up doing it.
I majored in history. You were smart for not majoring. I mean, it's good. I'd be great on Jeopardy if I got the right categories, but there's not really much practicality with that in the real world, unless you wanted to be a teacher, and that wasn't for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I love teachers. They're doing an amazing thing, but it is not for everybody.
Yep.
So which Jeopardy categories would you win?
Colonial, American history, probably something like that. There was a lot of that. Ancient Middle Eastern history, maybe.
Interesting. Yeah, those are cool categories.
Me, I don't know. Lately, very fascinated with how, like, the Bible either does or does not intersect with ancient history.
That is interesting.
Like, how much of that book is bullshit, you know? But clearly some of it isn't.
Right. And it's very interesting to kind of just break any kind of historical text down. Because, I mean, anybody writing anything, you usually kind of add an element of, bullshit to it. So,
Oh yeah, and like now we have like rules as far as like genres go. Back then, there wasn't a library with like horror fiction, biography.
right.
It was just books or tablets or whatever. So yeah, exactly. There was a lot of authors doing their own things and putting their own spins on things without necessarily putting footnotes in there saying, oh, this was added 4,000 years later by the new author or whatever.
Yeah. Or I embellished this to make it more interesting. So I guess back on music, you said that you were kind of working on some more music.
Yeah, we're always working on new tunes. We have a lot of stuff in the set that we haven't recorded yet. That's going to be the next steps for us, is getting
Okay.
that ready for release and getting ready to record. But in the next couple of months, we should be back in the studio, just figuring a couple of different things out. We don't have a full-time drummer right now, but we do have a lot of people that we work with that want to work with us. We're just
Hmm.
trying to figure out what that means right now and which direction we want to go in. But like, that's a decision that's going to be made, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So, the studio is a great time. It's a labor. It's a labor of love, but it's a labor. It's something that as a musician you have to give yourself to, I think, because you can't just focus on playing live or just focus on this or that. Like, you have to do a little bit of everything, especially I think these days.
Yeah. I think because if you focus too much on one or the other, then the other is neglected. And, because people can't see you live 100% of the time as much as they wish they could. So they have to be able to have something to take home.
Sure. Like, I wish we could just be like the Grateful Dead and just be on the road making, a good, good solid American living just for playing rock and roll tunes. But, I don't, until that happens, you got to do a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. I don't want to get on Twitch and on TikTok, but like, people are telling me, you're just ignoring, potential revenue streams by not. But like, I don't, I'd rather play in an empty club than play in like a lit up nothing room on Twitch to like these weird pop up things coming up.
I understand. I've tried. I can't do TikTok and Twitch. They're not for me. I don't really understand it. I don't really like it, but it is important. People say it's, very important right now.
Yeah, but then the flip side to that is, talking to a couple of people over the last few weeks that, book for bigger clubs in the city, let's say, 1,000 capacity, and they're booking acts that are hot on TikTok, and they say they're coming in, filling 25 to 30% of the room. So it's another one. Like, where is it going? Like,
Right.
what as an artist should you lean into? I always thought, from the beginning, because that's what I was into growing up, was that you put together a good live show and you just take that on the road, and you're the circus, and whether it's for 18,000 people or for 80 people, that can sustain you, because I've seen it sustain so many bands and groups that don't necessarily have success with streaming or
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah. My favorite part of music is the live aspect just because it's always just more exciting and because you're not there alone, you're there with everyone else and you're just having a fun night. And for me, I feel like that is more fun than just like singing the song in your bedroom alone.
For sure. Look, for some people singing the song in the bedroom alone is a good time too. And everybody enjoys the show differently. I remember, and I don't know why it hit me like a truck, but it was after a Slater Kinney show. And, we were hanging out in the band. What an amazing band, and like what a cool band to their fans. Just, there's maybe like 30 people hanging out talking to the band by their trailer. And, one fan goes up to Carrie Brownstein and she's like, I can't believe so many people, were just standing there. And Carrie was like, look, some people just stand there,
Right.
and that's a valid form of expression too. Not everybody, has to be a, pogo stick.
Yeah.
Like, as a performer, let me put it out there. I do really appreciate the pogo stick energy. Please bring
Yeah.
that if you want to be upfront.
Well, I think it's easier to tell that they're enjoying it.
For sure.
Not that the people who aren't dancing around and singing along aren't enjoying it, but it's just a lot easier they are enjoying it.
But like sometimes you get the most sincere and beautiful comments from people that you thought were just like looking at you with that like death stare. And you're like, damn, you don't have to like it. Well, then like you think like I gotta get out of it.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
enjoys things differently.
But it's definitely a lot easier to feed off of energy when it's like given to you
Oh,
in that amount.
oh, for sure. Like being vocal and being physical, in the audience. That's
Yeah.
even a smile. I'll take a smile.
Yeah. Because otherwise it's hard to know if they're enjoying it. And then it's probably hard to be like, are they enjoying it or are they just here because they're bored?
Sure, sure. You try not to think that in the middle of a performance, but like those thoughts will creep in for
Yeah.
sure.
So just a smile every now and then.
Just a little something, maybe a fist pump, something. You don't have to
Yeah.
go you don't have to go full Jersey Shore on me, but maybe just one.
Yeah. Because that's not for everybody.
Oh, for sure. They're all valid. And
Right.
that's another beautiful thing about coming to a concert. You see so many different people from different walks of life just, feeding into and off of the same energy.
hmm So I work at a couple of different concert venues in Boston, and my favorite thing is seeing all the little children at like the heavy metal rock concerts, just having the time of their life.
The kids I hope they're wearing, ear protection.
A lot of times they are, and for the ones that aren't, I'm like, oh, not great, but
Mackayla, you should bring us to Boston. I think the kids are going to love us over there.
yeah, that'd be fun. If you guys ever come, I'd definitely come and see you guys.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the plan. The plan is to expand like a little bit, now into New England and more into Pennsylvania and Southern Jersey. But you know what? I hear someone told me the other day that Florida and Texas have been calling. So,
Oh,
Florida and Texas, look out.
yeah, that'd be fun. Go in the winter.
Let's see what those people think about a few New York Yankees coming down to carpetbag.
That'd be interesting. That'd be more fun to do like during the winter that you could get out of the snow.
I don't complain about the snow in the winter. I hate summer. I try not to complain about it to people because I know everybody loves it. So I try to just, deal with it,
hmm
deal with the pain quietly. But I don't mind the New York winter.
Okay,
It's not bad. It's not like we live in Wisconsin,
that's true.
56 inches of snow and it's negative 20 every day. Like the worst we get is like 12. That's the coldest it gets. And that happens
hmm
twice.
Yeah, well, the summer can be annoying too with the heat.
Oh, I mean, you ever ride the New York City subway in July or August? It's not fun. Forget about riding the subway. Just waiting for a train more than 3 minutes. That just makes you want to be a better person for the rest of your life because hell is real. I'm sure it feels something like that.
hmm I know it's interesting because like I love the AC, so I prefer to be inside in the summer, and then all of my siblings prefer to be outside. I'm like, you're crazy. I can't deal with the heat.
Yeah, no, it's I don't, people are like, oh, but it's dry heat, or oh, if you catch the spot in the shade. I'm like, no, but like you could just be inside, the windows can be drawn, it can be nice. We can go outside during, the holiday season.
Right.
I'll be outside all day during holiday season. That's when I like to play my outdoor gigs. Don't ask me to play an outdoor gig in August. Come on, you want me to walk out of the place, right? You don't have to like wheel me out on a gurney.
So maybe Florida isn't for you in the summer?
Definitely not in the summer. Sorry, Florida. I mean, you know what? Like, look, money talks, Florida, but not gonna go out of our way to play Florida in July and August for sure.
Yeah. That's got to be brutal.
No, I mean, look, I've seen some of my favorite musicians, play festivals in, California and like
Yeah.
middle of the day, and part of their shtick is wearing a suit, and after the set, they need an IV, like we
Hmm.
legit need an IV,
Yeah.
which is fucked up to think about, but hey, this is the big when you're in the big leagues, you're in the big leagues.
Right. It is kind of because you see them on stage and you're in the audience, you're like, how are they surviving? And they're not in that heat.
Yeah, they're doing an amazing job of faking it though.
Right. Which is not healthy and shouldn't be something that happens, but it does.
No, I don't think so either. But like, and I think like, as the generations move on, I think that like that game on mentality is kind of people are starting to let go of that a little bit. Like
Hmm.
it's okay to sit one out. You don't. It's not life or death, for better or worse.
Yeah. And you can still put on an awesome show and not wear that suit.
Sure, sure. That's one of the things you really do want to get over is one of those bands that like can just wear whatever you want on stage. You don't want to have to get over as a band that like always dresses up in astronaut suits because one day you're gonna get the call to play Coachella at 3 in the afternoon in
Hmm.
July or whatever, and then you're gonna have to wear those space suits and it's gonna be really hot in there.
That's good advice. Very good advice. Yeah. So, what advice would you give to any aspiring musicians?
And I mean, honestly, like, hone in on what your goals are. The younger you are, the better. Really hone in on what your goals are and what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and just give yourself fully to those.
Hmm.
Humble yourself in front of the game. Take all of the gigs, especially at first, before you feel comfortable enough to start saying no to people. And that's a process in and of itself. But like at first, you got to just take all those gigs. You got to get out there. You got to see what's what. You got to keep your eyes wide open. Not everybody is going to have somebody to hold their hand. Some people do. Some people have, an uncle or an older brother that knows a few booking agents or that knows of this or that knows of that, and they can tell you like, don't take that gig. This promoter's trying to take advantage of you. But like some people never played a gig in their life, they're going to have to play that gig where the
Hmm.
promoter's trying to take advantage of them, unfortunately, which sucks. But
Yeah.
like, the alternative is not playing any gigs. So you have to really also, keep your eyes open and stay focused and just learn.
Hmm.
Every experience is an experience to learn.
Yeah. That's a good way to think of it. So, before I ask the last question, was there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about today?
Yeah, can I plug the Instagram, Scotia
Yeah.
Rose Band, Scotia Rose Band. We're on Bandcamp, scotiarose.bandcamp.com. You can buy some merch over there. And yeah, just check us out. We have the show at Cutting Room in New York City, September 5th. It's going to be a great night, making money, raising money for EV research. And yeah,
Okay. So, the last question is, what is the soundtrack of your life?
do I have to like give you like 10 songs or is it like
It
just
it's
general?
however you want to answer it.
Okay, great question. So I got to, Pearl Jam number one. Since I was a kid, since I was 9 years old, that they're the reason that I'm in a band that I wanted to play music.
Mhm.
That I chose music. Pearl Jam for sure is on there. Slater Kinney, another band that I followed around. Phenomenal. Just rock so hard. The power of chemistry, the power of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. I don't think I've ever experienced more in any band that I've ever listened to. The Ramones, to me, the most empowering band in the history of music. To me, amazing melodies, but also, taught so many people how to play music just by playing along to their records and just by saying like, hey, I can sound like that. That's not super technical or whatever. Just, one of the best ever. And amazing songs, amazing songs. You got to have cat power in there. Incredible performer, incredible voice. One of the most unique voices. Alice in Chains, Lane Staley, another one. Incredible, incredible voice. And the Doors, another one as a kid. The Doors don't get a lot of love anymore, but like when I was a kid in the 90s, they were kind of having that like little resurgence. The 60s psychedelia had a little bit of a revival during like the grunge thing. And I'm so glad I was exposed to them because another amazing band and just, incredible performer. Yeah, people, it kind of sad that people are starting to forget about the Doors. And I gotta throw some love for Wu Tang. Just Wu Tang and like the solo albums that came out, between 36 Chambers and Wu Tang Forever, Iron Man, Only Built for Cuban Links, Liquid Swords, Return, Return to the 36 Chambers, the dirty version. Just amazing, amazing albums. Just like ideas, like, oh, I can rap about this thing that I saw on TV when I was 8 years old, or I
Mhm.
can, just and some of the lines, if you look at those lyrics, you can just take like three of them and just build this like a little pop song out of them because just amazing, amazing, incredible, incredible wordplay. And yeah, I just want to throw some love to Sonic Youth also because the first time I saw them play, it was like you can do that. You can make sounds like you can make sounds like that, and that was just wild.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you so much. That's a really good soundtrack.
Thank you, Mackayla. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, we really appreciate this. Any chance we get to like turn more people onto our music is one that we're always happy to take.
Yeah. Well, have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.